Thank you all very much for attending and taking this evening to come and learn about being a first-time homebuyer. So as you can see, Fairway is the company I work for. Just a little bit about Fairway. We are the #1 company in the country to work for, period, regardless of the business that it is. And we are the 5 years running as the #1 mortgage company to work for as well. We're one of the largest lenders in the country that no one's ever heard of. So you're in great hands if you decide to purchase a property and utilize us for your loan process. So purchasing your first home is an exciting time, but it can also be quite stressful. At Fairway, we can take the stress out of the loan process and guide you through every step of the way. Plus, with our commitment to fast turnaround times, you can rest assured your loan will close on time. And basically what that means is, Alisha will get into this a little bit more, but you have a contract in place with a specific closing date, and closing on time is very, very important to the process. So if you are not with a good lender and you don't have the possibility on closing on time, not only could you have the opportunity of losing your property, there's also money in escrow that you can actually forfeit as well. So closing on time is very important. Today we will discuss the benefits of home ownership, preparing for your loan application, home financing options for first-time home buyers, and then choosing a loan that's right for you. So there are multiple loan programs out there, so we're going to go through those near the end of the presentation. All right, here's just a simple analysis on what the difference is from purchasing as well as renting. As you can see there, over 30 years, you're going to, at $900 a month in rent, you're looking at $324,000. If you were to purchase a property and have decent interest rates, you're going to actually increase $315,000 of equity. So not that you're throwing that money away for rent, because obviously you're living somewhere, but you're not building any equity. Equity is very important for multiple reasons. Okay, so here's the reason why. So mortgage payments help you build equity in your home. Home ownership may help you qualify for federal tax deductions. It will. And renovations or upgrades to your home may increase your home's value. So that's very important, because obviously rentals, you do any upgrades or anything like that, you get none of that in return. All right, here's some simple things to know before you buy. How much can I afford? This is a process that we go through. It's called debt to income ratio. So based off of how much debt you have, i.e. credit card payments, car payments, student loans, child support, or any other federal debts, that's going to determine how much you can afford based off of how much money you bring in monthly. So your monthly income is what's going to determine how much of a property you can afford. How much can I afford for a down payment? Based off of how much money you have in your bank account, you can get a gift from a family member, or you can pull from a retirement fund in order to get a down payment to purchase your property. Will I be able to make my monthly mortgage payments? We will determine that based off of the debt to income ratio, and we will give you a basic number of how much your monthly payments are going to be based off of the purchase price. If you're not comfortable with that, then we obviously can find you a property a little bit lower priced. How long do I plan on owning this home? That's also very important, because you don't want to get into something for 2 or 3 years and just get out of it and start renting again. So you always want to make sure this is a long-term, hopefully a long-term investment, and you could utilize it as a rental property or investment property if that option is available. Are there any additional costs to owning this home that I should be considered? Absolutely. I mean, upgrades, you have new washer and dryer, toilet breaks, you're responsible for fixing it. Any expenses, painting the wall, etc. I always recommend that individuals have at least $5,000 to $10,000 additional in the bank for any upgrades or just any expenses that pop up that you weren't aware of prior to moving in. Okay, a mortgage consists of PITI, that is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So majority of people escrow their taxes and insurance. So when you have a mortgage payment, that consists of all 4 things. So you may have a principal and interest of $1,000, and then your taxes could be $400 to $500 a month, and your homeowner's insurance can be $200 to $300 a month. Taxes in Florida are high. We're some of the highest taxes in the country, period. So you're thinking of, when you're doing the math, if you're looking at a property, you're looking at about 1.75% of the purchase price is what you're going to be paying in taxes. So it's just a rule of thumb if you want to do calculations on your own. Amortization is repaying your mortgage loan with regular scheduled payments of both principal and interest. Amortization terms is the length of time required to amortize the mortgage loan expressed as the number of months. Basically, if you have a 30-year mortgage, your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance are your insurance may change and your taxes may change, but your principal and interest will stay the same. So basically, you're going to be, after 30 years, you will have that property paid off. One thing I always recommend, if you have the funds to do so, to try to maybe pay another $100, $200, every so often towards the principal, because that's going to do two things. It's going to lower the amount of interest you pay, as well as going to lower the amount of months you have to pay. So you could literally drop your 30-year mortgage to a 25-year mortgage by just simply paying $100 to $200 a month. Maybe two to three times a year towards the principal, but it needs to be to the principal only. Here is basically home buying process. So with Fairway, and Alisha can contest to this, we walk you through the process. So if you've never purchased a house, or this is your first time or your fifth time purchasing a property, we make it as simple as possible and update you constantly. So you never feel like you're left in the dark and you don't know where your loan is. So it makes your life a lot easier in understanding that things are moving forward. So if you need documentation, or if we need anything for underwriting or our setup team because we missed something, we're going to inform you immediately. So that way we can close on time like we mentioned before. So I'm just going to walk through the steps. Simply, we have the pre-qualification. That's when you come to me and you say, hey, Jared, I'm ready to buy a house. Alisha is going to help me look for properties in Broward County. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you a pre-approval letter. You're going to send me over documentations, answer some government questions, fill out an app online. And then once I determine how much you can afford, I'm going to give you a pre-approval letter. Then you meet with your real estate agent to find out where you want to live and the price range that you got pre-approved for. Then you negotiate pricing. Earnest money is cash. So that means once you get into contract and you found that property that you love, then you're going to have to put a deposit to hold that when you get into contract. Then you're going to order an inspection. So that's something to determine that the house is in good shape, what your insurance cost is going to be, and then you're going to apply for the loan. So see Fairway documents checklist. So basically from that, we're just going to continue the process already from the pre-qualification. It's just adding some additional documentation. Loan estimate and disclosure. So once we receive a contract, by law, we have to send you a loan estimate and a disclosure within 3 business days. What that's going to do is it's going to have approximately your monthly payments, your closing cost, as well as estimated taxes and your mortgage insurance if you don't put over 20% down, as well as any additional fees that come up with the purchase of a property. Then we get into underwriting, your final loan approval. Once you have your final loan approval and you're clear to close, then we all raise our hands and say yay, because those are the 3 words that are the most important to us, as well as to realtors and the buyers. Then we're going to get your final closing disclosure. That's going to be basically all the costs that are going to be included that you're going to need to have at closing, and you're going to wire that money over, and you're going to have your final monthly payment at that time. So then you're going to have your closing documents, money for closing, final closing steps. That's when we sit down and we sign everything, and then boom, the loan is funded and you are a new homeowner. So I know I'm going through this pretty quickly, and once you go through the process, it will be a little bit more detailed, but that kind of simplifies the process in a 30-day window, because a lot of the closings are done in a 30-day window. So we get all of that information done. So you are on a serious roller coaster and be prepared to be on top of it. Because if you don't supply documents for us, if you don't return our emails and phone calls, you could be the reason to hold up from closing on time. So it's a two-way street. And I mean, it's a three-way street because Alisha takes part in this as well if things come up that she has to handle. All right, the do's. Okay, keep originals or be able to access your employer. So you want to always be able to have access to bank statements, pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns if you're self-employed. Those are very important in the purchase process as well as getting pre-approved. You need to have money in the bank and you have to be able to show us the deposit for the earnest money. So that's once you get in the contract. And notify your loan officer if you plan to receive a gift funds for closing. So that could be money that, like I said, you can borrow from a friend or gift. It's not borrowed. There's no intentions to pay this back from a family member or a relative. Notifying your loan officer or any employment changes such as a recent raise, promotion, transfer, or change in pay status. So if you get a promotion, this could possibly help you purchase a larger property, a higher cost property, or it could lower your debt to income ratio as well, which is needed in some cases, but not always. Be aware that a new credit report could be pulled just prior to closing. It's rare. The only time we really have to re-pull a credit is if you've been looking for a property for over 3 months and we get to that 4-month window and your credit report has expired, then we would have to re-pull your credit report. So you have 4 months from application to find a property without having to re-pull your credit. All right, the don'ts. These are very, very, very important, and I can't stress this enough. So you do not want to close or open any access accounts or transfers funds between accounts without talking with your loan officer about the proper documentation required for your loan. So even if you are planning on getting a gift or you're transferring money from a business account to a personal account, please speak to us first so that everybody's on the same page on how to do so. Whenever there's large sums of money transferring from one account to another, we always need an explanation. So it's a lot easier to speak to us first so that we are prepared for that transfer. Deposit any money outside your automated payroll deposits, particular cash or sale of personal property without notifying your loan officer. Say you have a motorcycle or a car or something of that nature and you decide to sell it and you deposit that money into your account without any explanation, that is a no-go. Any money that is deposited within the 2-month window of the bank statements that we receive have to have explanation, and any deposit that doesn't have an explanation could cause your loan not to go through. Job changes, employer without inquiring about the impact this change may have on your loan. If you lose your job and you don't have one immediately that's in the same field, there's a strong, if you lose your job, period, unfortunately, we will not be moving forward with the loan. But if you do change jobs prior to closing, there's still workarounds, but it makes life a lot more difficult. Once you close on the property and that key is in your hand, you can change jobs. You can, look for a new one if you're unhappy where you're at, but please don't do that in the 30-day window that you're purchasing that property. All right, major purchases. Don't go out and buy a car, furniture, appliances. Yes, I understand you may want to upgrade this new house that you're moving into, but do so afterwards. Any new credit cards, or even if you close a credit card, could cause you from losing out on the contract and not closing on your property. Open or increase any liabilities. So credit cards, student loans, and other lines of credit. You always want to make sure that you stay up to date and don't stop making payments on them on a monthly basis. All right, getting pre-qualified. This is my job, and this what helps you determine how much you can afford before you start shopping for homes. This is very important because, like I said, this is going to give Alisha the documentation needed to make offers on properties. Let sellers know you're serious about purchasing a home. And if any of you are interested now or later, feel free to give me a call and we can go through that process.
Jared, before you go on, can you just give a little explanation about what it looks like to get pre-qualified? What do they need to do to get to that step, to get that letter?
Absolutely. So what we're going to require from you are 2 months bank statements, 2 most recent pay stubs, 2019 and 2020 tax returns, as well as we're going to have to pull your credit. So based off of all that documentation and pulling your credit, we'll be able to determine what your interest rate would possibly be based off of the current market conditions, as well as your debt to income ratio. So we know what the purchase power you have. So that way, you know what home you can afford.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, it's your turn, Alisha. Boom.
Okay, so typically, you're going to start with a loan officer. You're going to come to me or whoever you're using as your realtor and already be pre-approved. And so for everyone, it's always like, okay, I'm pre-approved, now what? You go on. So this is the time when you get with the realtor. For me, typically I'm already involved. The reason being is because a lot of first-time home buyers come to me first. They say, oh, I'm coming to a realtor because I want to buy a house. And I say to them, well, are you approved? Do you have the money to buy a house? And they say, well, yeah, I got money in the bank. Do you have someone that's going to actually provide you with the loan? And that's when I get someone like Jared involved at Fairway, because you can't move forward if you don't have the loan, right? So we don't need to start looking at houses before you've been pre-approved. So once you get pre-approved and you start talking to a realtor, what do you need to do? We need to first find out how much are you pre-approved for. So Jared could send me a letter and it shows, okay, so-and-so is now pre-approved for $350,000. Great, now we have a budget in mind. We know that you can buy a house that's $350,000. So then I would ask you, what are your needs and wants? I put needs in caps because we all want a very, very nice house. We want that open floor plan, the nice kitchen, remodeled bathrooms, his and her sink, and all that good stuff. But what are your needs? When you're thinking about your needs and you're talking to a realtor, you need to think about, where do I need to be? If you have kids, what schools are they in? Are there good schools in that area? How many bedrooms do you need? Those are more so the things that you need to have. You need to have something in your budget in an area you like. Now, what are wants? Okay, I want a pool. You don't need to have a pool, but you want a pool, right? So think about those needs and wants and make a list. Make a priority list, knowing that this is something I can compromise on and this is something I'm not willing to let go of. Then we set up your basic search. Be realistic, be honest, talk to your partner. I've had couples that come to me, wife wants this, husband wants that, and I'm like, okay, what y'all gonna do here, right? He thinks he can be this macho man and fix the whole house up, and I'm like, are you sure? And his wife is like, no, we don't have the time. And I can talk about these people because they were my cousins, but ultimately we found a house that was for them. But be realistic. And so once you start that criteria search, you'll start to get homes that are in that price range with your wants and needs from your realtor. Now you're going to look through those and you're going to start deciding which ones you like enough to go and see them. Okay, we can go on. So now we're here and the search begins. You always have the people who are super picky. They don't want to get out there. They're like, nah, you sent me 12 houses. Not one of them was interesting. Okay, you send me another 20 houses. I don't like any of them. No need for me to see them. Then you get the buyers that are, they want to see every single house, even the shack that they know they don't want to live in, but they're like, it's in my budget. I need to see it. And then you get the Bob the Builder, like my cousin, who's like, this house is cheap. I'm going to fix it. Trust me, it's going to work out. I don't want you to be any of these people. I don't want you to be super picky. I don't want you to try to see every single thing. I don't want you to be Bob the Builder, unless that's something you really know how to do. When you're a first-time home buyer, typically you're really set on a budget. So you don't want to get into a situation where now you have a mortgage you got to pay, right? You got these taxes and things like that. And now you're also trying to fix the house. So you want to put yourself in a position where you have something that's pretty much move-in ready and affordable. And maybe you are making some repairs or some upgrades to make it more home for you. But put yourself in a position that's realistic and that's going to be beneficial for you and your family. Okay, so now you think you found the house. This happens. You see 12 houses and you say, Alisha, I really love this one. Let's get it. What could possibly go wrong, right? The truth. So sometimes you love a house and it just works out. You say, Alisha, this is the house for me. I want it. Let's go. Let's put an offer on it. And it just happens. The other times you put an offer in, like right now in today's market, if you're putting in an offer at asking price, there's going to be someone putting in an offer $5,000 over. If you're putting in an offer and you're asking for them to pay certain fees for you, if you're saying, hey, look, I can tell the roof is owed. So before, I'm putting in an offer, but I want you to fix the roof before I move in. If you're putting any contingency like that, it's going to be more difficult in today's market. So 9 times out of 10, if you're not coming with the best of the best, you're going to get beat out by another offer. Houses are flying off the market in days. I'm not talking about weeks or months. I'm talking about houses are on the market in 4 days, they're under contract. That contract doesn't work out, the next day they're under a new contract. So sometimes you love a house and you put an offer in and it doesn't get accepted. So you have to go in with that in mind as well. Don't get so down on yourself that it's like, okay, I put in this offer, I didn't get it. The other thing is your offer may not be accepted right away, right? So there are different ways about it. I had a client last month, her offer wasn't accepted right away. Why? Everyone had the exact same offer. The realtor called me and told me this. He said, Alisha, you were the first offer, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to be the best offer. And how is that? Every single one of you put the exact same purchase price, and we all went at purchase price. And so he told me, I'm telling all the agents this. It was about 4 or 5 offers. He told all of us the same thing and told us to resubmit our highest and best. So at that point, we went up, I think about $3,000 more, and we were able to go under contract. So there are ways around this, but do have the expectation and be realistic with yourself that just because you put an offer in doesn't mean that's going to be your house, right? This is a process. So sometimes you put an offer in and the house is not compatible with your loan. If you're doing an FHA loan, which Jared will get into later, the different loan types, you might put an FHA loan offer out, and then we find out that there is an issue with this unit, either because it's not considered a single family home, so it's in a condo situation, so then you can't have an FHA loan or something like that. So the minute you find something that you love and you want to put an offer in, your realtor should then contact your mortgage lender and immediately make sure that this is something that is compatible with your loan so that we can move forward and there aren't any mishaps. And that's usually what I do. As soon as you say you love it, I send a text message or an email to your lender. Hopefully that's Fairway. And I say, hey, this is the address. Tell me if we can do this. And as I'm driving home, I'm waiting on them to respond to me, and they've always been responsive. I haven't had any issues. And then I can get home, get that yes, get that change in the pre-approval letter that now says, not just you're approved for $350,000 random dollars, but you're approved for the amount of money we're going to put the offer in and for this particular address. So when you first get the pre-approval letter, that might look generic. It's just going to say, Jared is approved for $350,000 to buy a house. Where? What's the address? We don't know yet, right? But some realtors don't allow you to even see their house without a pre-approval letter. And some realtors won't work with you unless you have a pre-approval letter. So you want that generic letter because it carries weight and value. Now, once you know exactly which house it's going to be, Jared would then look it up, make sure the taxes fit and everything else fits in your budget. So then when the new pre-approval letter comes back, it has the address and all of that. And sometimes you get pre-approved for $350,000 and then you find a house you love for $355,000. Does that mean you can't have the house? No, not necessarily. Most times, in fact, you go back to your lender and you say, look, this is a little bit more than what I was pre-approved for. Can it work? And I have not had the experience where it didn't work, but I also don't have my clients going from $350,000 to $600,000 houses. Now that might not work, but if we're a couple $1,000s short or shy or something like that, we still will give it a shot, right? So there's still the appraisal that has to happen. The house may not even be of that value, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So the other issues that could happen, taxes are insane. The HOA might have some kind of rule where you have to have a 700 credit score, and let's say you have a 690. And so do we really want to take the risks and put money in escrow and things like that? And then the HOA ends up denying you. Now, some people have no idea what an HOA is. So a homeowners association, when you live in some of these communities where all the grass is the same, every house is colored, painted the same, those kind of communities are run by HOA boards. And so typically in those situations, you have to have a certain credit score. You have to be approved by the board to be, a member in the community, etc. These are the people with all the Karens telling you, cut your grass and stuff like that. So you got to pay attention to those HOA communities. And we have to make sure we know from the onset what the requirements are. And then sometimes, you find a house and you think you love it. And I find out, oh, it was recently under contract just last week. Why did that fall apart? Your realtor should be asking questions like that. Why was that house under contract and it fell apart? Well, it had a foundation issue. What? So, you find out something like that. You're like, I'm not even going to take the risk. It has a $60,000 foundation issue. Let me just back up now. So that's what I mean by everything isn't what it seems. Again, trust the process. What's meant to be will be. I've had issues where the first offer isn't accepted, but we keep on searching, and then the next one is. So don't go in gun-ho that this is my dream house. I have to have this. This happened to me and my partner about 1.5 years ago. The first 2 houses we put offers on, we didn't get. So keep that in mind, especially in today's market. Okay, so what do we do when your offer is accepted? Let me first tell you how we got here. Okay. So you say, Alisha, I got to have this house. This is the one for me. So I say, okay, well, let's take a step back here. If this is the house, we're going to put a contract. Now, when you're under contract, if they accept your offer and you go under contract, there are rules that go with this, right? You got to put money down in a deposit. You can lose out on this. I always try to make sure people are 100% sure that this is the house for them, especially if it's the first house we've seen. Then they're like, I got to have this first house. This is the perfect house for me. Okay, you sure you want to sleep on it? And it depends on how long the house has been on the market. So if the house has been on the market for a short amount of time, we don't have a lot of time to lollygag, right? We have to kind of move quickly, especially if it's a very popular home. And I will know that because I will know how many people have gone to see the house. I will, again, know how many days the house has been on the market. So I know if we have room to play games. If the house has been on the market for over 3 months, any house that's on the market for more than 90 days, they're kind of desperate. And why I say that is because, especially in today's market, if your house hasn't sold in 3 months, it's going to be hard to sell it. So this gives us a little bit of leverage, right? So when we're making our offer, we know we could probably get away with even giving them less than asking price. The house I just sold, the condo I sold last month, we gave them significantly less than asking price. We gave them about $50,000 less. The house has been sitting on the market for over 1 year. It was an overpriced condo, and that's why they weren't selling it. I had cash buyers, so we could, we had a little bit of leverage there. So when you're making the offer, this is what it looks like. You're talking to your realtor. You're saying, I really love this house. Your realtor's asking you, how much do you love this house? Do you love it as much as they're asking for? And you might say, yeah, I want it. Whatever they're asking for, that's what I'm willing to pay. Your realtor should then go home or to their office, do some research, see the comparables in the area. Is this house priced right? Because sometimes you get a house, it's priced for $400,000 and all the houses that sold right next to it sold for $200,000. So why are you asking me $400,000 if this area, the homes are $200,000? Okay, they might say they have additional upgrades. The roof is brand new, they have impact windows and doors, it's a new AC, etc. In those instances, you come together with your realtor will give you a price that they believe is fair, and you have to make a decision. Is that what I'm willing to pay? Are we willing to go under what they're asking? Again, that depends. How hot is this house? How hot is the market? So you put your offer in by having your realtor completely fill out a contract. So putting your offer in is not calling the homeowner and saying, look, I love your house, here's $400,000 for it. Putting in your offer is writing up a contract. So your realtor will fill out a complete contract. The least amount of pages it'll be is about 12. So it's going to be very long and lengthy. But the basic things that contract says is you have the right to inspect. You have a right to do an appraisal, especially if it's a finance deal. What your purchase price is. how much money you're going to be putting down in escrow, which is as a deposit. It's not a down payment. It's not your full down payment that you're coordinating with your lender. This is just a deposit that says you're serious, right? And you're not giving it directly to the homeowner. You're putting it in the account, and we'll get there. So you're going to negotiate a little bit. So you might put an offer in for exactly asking price, and they come back and they say, listen, or you put it in about $10,000 less than asking price, and they come back and say, look, we wanted 410, you gave us an offer for 400. And my client doesn't want to accept that, but my client will accept 405. Okay, we're negotiating. Okay, cool. I promise you guys $400,000 and $405,000 when you're getting a loan, they do not really turn out that much of a difference, okay? Yeah, you're thinking, oh my God, that's $5,000 more. When you're getting it financed and you're paying it back in monthly increments on an interest rate, it really turns out not to be that much of a difference. It might change your monthly payments, I don't know, $12. It might not even be that high, and Jared could attest to this, but at that point, do we want to negotiate further? You're meeting them in the middle. So you make the offer, you negotiate, and then they accept the offer. So everyone, right? They're like, I'm under contract. They've accepted my offer. This is my house now, right? I'm a homeowner. Wrong. You're not. Generally speaking, we will have 30 days between when your offer is accepted and the contract is executed. And what I mean by that is you submitted the offer with your signature on it. The other side says, we agree. They signed and sent it back. So now you have an executed contract. And so between that time and when we actually close on the deal, it's about 30 days. It could be more. It could be longer. Right now with COVID, I know a lot of lenders are asking people to do their closings 45 days out because there are a lot of closings happening. There's refinancing happening and things like that. So a lot can happen in 30 days. And you can go under contract and a week later, you could be out of contract for various reasons. One of which is we're going to do an inspection. Now, if something crazy comes up in the inspection, you find out again that the roof is coming down and it's going to be, a $20,000 project. You might say, I don't want to take on that. And if you do decide that, we back out of the contract, and you have the right to do so per the contract. And so that's why I say a lot can happen in 30 days. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so you're under contract. Now what? There are so many things that happens from being under contract all the way down to closing. And this process it's fun, it's stressful, but you're thinking about the long goal, right? At the end, you're going to be in your beautiful home, celebrating holidays with your family and things like that, raising your children, letting the dogs run around, whatever the case is. But you got to do everything to get there. And the best way to get this all done is to work hand in hand with your lender, work hand in hand with your realtor. If your lender asks you to get documents to them, get it to them. If your realtor asks you to sign something, sign it. And it's difficult because, you guys are still going to be working and dealing with your families and things like that. But you just have to make the time to just be responsive. The more you're responsive, the quicker the process goes, the more smoothly it goes, and the happier you'll be. So the minute you put in an offer, one of the first things you're going to do is put money in escrow. What is escrow, Alicia? Escrow is this made up world, right? You're putting money with a title company or an attorney in an account that neither side is touching, right? It's not that you're putting money down and the seller is now taking advantage of this money and buying jet skis and stuff. No, you put the money in the escrow account and it says, this is my deposit. This is my money to show you I am serious. And this money is not separate from the overall money that you're going to be putting down anyways. It just kind of all folds together. Let's say you were going to put down in total for your loan that you were approved for, you're going to put down $30,000. That's your down payment, let's say. So if you put $30,000 down with Jared, and when we go to put money in escrow, you decide to put $10,000 in escrow, showing this is my deposit. Those $10,000 are going to be a part of that overall $30,000. Someone else is going to sort that money out later. You don't need to be thinking about that in the beginning. All you need to think is, Alisha told me I need to put $10,000 down in escrow. Alisha, where do I wire that? And you take care of that, you get it wired, you put the 10,000. When we get to closing all the way at the end, 30 days has passed, and you need to put your down payment with your final balance money. And let's say, again, you were putting down 30,000. So you're just missing the $20,000 now, because the 10,000 is getting embedded with that 20 to make the 30. So now when you come to closing, you're just missing the difference. And those were very basic numbers. There's also closing costs, etc. But in the grand scheme of things, think about it that way. So I don't want you to think, oh, I said I was going to put $30,000 down. I put 10 in escrow. Now I'm really coming out of pocket 40,000. You're not. You're putting 10 in escrow in the beginning, early on. And then later, you're putting the rest of that down payment down much later on in the process, okay? So the very first thing after you're under contract, you have, generally speaking, 3 days to put the money in escrow. Then you're gonna have some lender docs to take care of. You're gonna go back and forth with your lender. They're gonna say, oh, send me your pay stub. You're gonna say, I sent you those already. Yes, send them again. Give me your bank statements. I sent you those last month. Yep, I want the new ones. So get all those documents in. Then we're going to have an inspection. While that's happening, you're having an inspection. Generally, you can put anywhere between a 7-day inspection period and a 15-day inspection period. I normally like to go with 10. I'd like to kind of split the baby. During those 10 days for the inspection period, this is your time, if you have to get out of the contract without losing the money that's in escrow. Now, when the inspection happens, and everyone should get an inspection done, right? You don't want to just buy a house. You don't know what's going on with it. During the inspection, you have your inspector check for the roof, make sure things are permitted, make sure there aren't any foundation issues, plumbing issues, you name it. Check the AC, make sure it's really blowing, that it actually works, it's been installed properly. I have an inspector who will literally tell you if a doorknob is loose, okay? And so you get all of these things on a grand inspection report. And at that time, you can decide, wow, this house has a lot of problems, I'm getting out. Or, oh, this is not bad. This is only a few $1,000s, this is manageable. And when you look at that inspection report, I don't want you looking at it thinking, oh, this house isn't perfect. No house is gonna be perfect, right? Even the ones that they're building for you, there's still gonna be something going on. So when you see the inspection report, it's not a tool to discourage you, right? It's just so you have the information. There are going to be a few things on that inspection report that you're going to be like, okay, that's not that serious, or you're not even going to want to deal with because you're like, I like the color, right? You don't care, and that's okay. You don't need to try to fix every single thing on the inspection report. Also on the inspection report, they're going to tell you, oh, to replace this door is going to cost $200. And you might say, my dad could replace this door for me just buying the product, buying the parts for $50, whatever the case is. So there's also this high estimate on the reports that can be discouraging. So as soon as you get that inspection report, if it's between that 10-day period, you have time to decide, okay, am I or am I not staying in the contract? If you decide that you are staying in the contract, usually what happens next is a negotiation of the inspection results. What does that look like? Well, like I said, you as the buyer, you get to pick the inspector. Of course, never let the seller pick the inspector. They're going to say there's nothing wrong with the house. So you will talk to your inspector and they will tell you the big picture idea, the big ticketed things. They will be honest with you. Look, there's a leak in the roof. This is something you're going to have to take care of. It's going to cost thousands of dollars. Or they'll tell you, look, this house is fine. There's a few things, termites here and there. Most Florida houses have termites. You get it treated, you'll be okay. So once you have that conversation with the inspector, you review the report, you talk to your realtor. Your realtor can then do some negotiation on your behalf. So usually what happens is I add it all up at the end, and I'd be as dramatic as possible. If my inspector says it's going to cost between $150 and $500 to fix something, I'm going with the $500 amount. So I add all the numbers up. Let's say after every single thing that you need to get fixed, it says it's going to cost $8,000 to get all these things fixed. And again, they're putting everything on there from a loose doorknob to a roof issue. So you have all those in betweens, and maybe you're really probably only going to do, let's say it comes out to $8,000 and you're thinking for the big things I really got to fix, it's really like 4,000. That's manageable. What I'm going to do then is say, okay, look, I'm going to get on the phone with the agent on the other side. I'm going to say, look, we had our inspection. My client still loves the house, absolutely wants it, but we got about $8,000 in repairs we got to pay for. I think that you guys should give my client a credit of $5,000, right? Look, it's 8,000, I know, and we're only asking for 5, right? It's kind of BS, right? Because we probably know that you only need about $3,000 or $4,000, but we got to start higher, right? Because then they're going to come back and say, well, I know you're asking for 5, and my client says they can only do 3. And then I say, look, let's split the baby and go for 4. So once you do that, my favorite thing is getting that credit to go towards closing costs. We do not want that credit to lower the purchase price. So if you're buying the house for $400,000 and they're giving you a $5,000 credit, we don't now want to buy the house for $395,000. Why? Well, you're getting a loan for that amount. So let's pay off that loan in bits and pieces. That's fine. As opposed to if they're going to give us $5,000 credit at closing, now that's $5,000 you actually get to save in your bank account and don't have to pay towards the closing costs. Okay, so now we got the inspection results back. We've all decided we're still buying the house. The next thing you're going to have to deal with is the appraisal. So these are some out-of-pocket expenses that you're paying despite whatever down payment and closing costs you have. So you're paying for this inspection. It costs you anywhere between $250 and $600 for the inspection. Just depends on how big the house is, how intense of an inspection you're doing. Are you also doing termites? Are you also doing, if you have a dock, your house is on the water and now you need someone to come and inspect the dock, etc. So the other out-of-pocket expense that people don't think about is the appraisal. And that's generally, I would say, between $400 and $600. So you want to pay for the appraisal. The appraisal tells you the true value of the house. Okay, so someone can tell you, yeah, buy my house for $400,000, you agree, and then it gets appraised and it comes back as $350,000. That's all the house is worth. Okay, so in that instance, the bank is not going to give you a $400,000 loan when the house is only worth $350,000. Now the bank is losing $50,000. Why would they agree to that? So what happens in those situations is either the seller agrees to lower the price to what it's actually valued at, or the buyer agrees to pay the difference that the bank is not going to give them, or you negotiate somewhere in the middle. Okay, so that's why I say negotiate some more. Then there's title work happening. The title work is just checking to see if the person who's trying to sell the house actually owns it, right? So they're looking in the background, making sure that this person actually owns the house, have rights to sell it, right? You don't want to be buying a house from someone who doesn't even own the house. They're checking to see if there are any open permits. Did they really permit the roof? Things like that. And then it's a waiting process. It's just waiting for the bank to do what they have to do. You'll scream, you'll cry, you'll be frustrated. You'll be like, Alisha, I'm filling out the same documents over and over again. Just get it done. Get it done. That's all I can tell you. The whole process, I'll buy you a beer when it's over. Get it done. And then you have a property survey done as well. That just makes sure we know what it is you really own. When they go out and they check the property, make sure the neighbor's fence isn't on your line and your fence isn't on the neighbor's line, and check to make sure you actually know exactly what's your property, what's your premises. And again, more lender paperwork. That's always going to be the case. That doesn't go away until it's over. Do I own it now? We've done the inspection, we've done the appraisal, we've negotiated, there was title work, the survey happened. You're just waiting on that clear to close. As soon as Jared says we have a clear to close, you're almost going to own it. So we're almost there. Getting that clear to close. Most of what goes into that is making sure you were doing all those documents that you were supposed to be doing. We're talking to the other side. We're making sure Jared and I have a case right now where we're closing next week, hopefully, if this lady will move out of the house. So we have the clear to close. The seller asked for 2 extra weeks to stay in the home. Okay, right? So we pushed it back a little bit. So getting the clear to close is just make sure you're doing everything on your side. So my buyer has done everything on his side. We are ready. You got the clear to close, and we're getting to the finish line. So as soon as they say, as soon as the lender tells you, you can close, you have a clear to close, the title company tells you when you can come to their office to actually close. They both do balancing, making sure if Jared says at the end of this, you know, Alisha needs to come to closing with exactly $50,201.17. The title company has to have a balance sheet that says that exact amount as well. They have to be on the same page, even to the penny. So as soon as they tell you how much, you go to your bank, you make that final wire. Usually people do it either the morning of closing or the day before. And so you go, you do a final walkthrough, you go to the property, you walk through the property, you make sure, you know, the stuff they say were going to be left in the property are still there. They didn't leave with the refrigerator or the washing machine. And then you'd be ready to sign because it's going to be a whole lot of signing. Stretch your wrist out and it's time to be at the finish line. And then you kiss your realtor and you say, thank you. You're on mute.
All right, let me jump in here now. Okay, so loan programs. So I know we're kind of going back a little bit, but this will help determine what is the best fit for you. So available, I mean, believe it or not, you could do a 10-year, a 15, a 20, 25, and a 30-year term. Principal and interest payments never change. So basically, the lower the amount of years that you do, the better interest rate you're going to have. Because what it is, it's going to be less risk for the bank over a shorter period of time. So your interest rates could change literally by 1 point, but obviously your monthly payments will be significantly higher than if you were to get a 30-year term. The average, I mean, the most common by far, I would say 99% of the loans that I currently do are going to be 30-year fixed mortgages. You do have occasions where you're going to do a 10 and 15-year one, but those are usually more common for refinance for somebody that's been in their property for a while and wants to get a really lower interest rate and they just want to pay 15 years and get it over with. So those are things that we can obviously have that discussion when that time comes. If you feel more comfortable with a 15-year loan and you can afford it and want to save a little bit of money on interest, I do recommend it. Conventional mortgages. So conventional mortgages are ones that can be sold on the secondary market. And I know I might probably be speaking to over your head a little bit, but basically we purchase the loans at the beginning of the whole process, and then we go ahead and sell it on the secondary market. So what that means is somebody else you may be making payments to, but the majority of the time you're always going to be in contact with me as the lender and as well as Fairway, because Fairway will service the loan. So you're still going to make payments to them directly. You'll set up an automatic payment situation and be able to handle that moving forward. But conventional mortgages are any mortgages that are under $548,250. $1 over that, and then you're into a non-conforming, which is called a jumbo loan. So jumbo loans are definitely available up to about $2 million if that's what you're capable of affording. But those are different programs and a little bit of a different process. So we could obviously dive into that more if that is the price range you're looking for. All right, so here are the different loan programs outside of just standard conventional. You have Federal Housing Administration, which are FHA, and a lot of people have heard of those and they think, oh, they're first-time home buyer programs. That is not the case. You can get an FHA loan if you bought in 6 houses or this is your first property. All it is it's a program available to help with 2 things: individuals with lower credit score. So conventional credit score is 660 is needed, and then 600 to 659 is an FHA mortgage. FHA has a couple positives and then a few negatives. The positives is you can get into a home with a little bit lower credit score. It has a higher debt to income ratio. So usually for conventional, you're looking at about 45 to 46%. FHA can give you up to 55%. So it gives you a little bit more buying power and it gets you into a property a little bit easier. The negatives is it has mortgage insurance. So anytime you put less than 20% down on a property, you are required to pay mortgage insurance. The major difference between mortgage insurance for a conventional loan and an FHA loan are FHA, if you put less than 10% down, the required is 3.5%. You are going to be paying mortgage insurance for the life of the loan. So what does that mean? For 30 years, you will be paying mortgage insurance with an FHA loan. Unless you refinance throughout the process of those 30 years and go into a conventional, it can be removed. Otherwise, it stays on there. So that's 0.85% of the loan. So hypothetically speaking, for a $200,000 property, you could be paying roughly around $120 a month just in mortgage insurance. Conventional will be less, most likely, depending on your credit score, but it will be removed automatically after a 78% loan to value. So what does that mean? If you bought the house for 100, a loan amount of 100, and you're at $78,000, it will get removed and you never have to pay mortgage insurance again. If there are any veterans out there, there's some great programs available for VA where it's 0% down. They have lower interest rates, fees, and down payments available, as well as they kind of do their own process when it comes to appraisals. So there's a lot of benefits into a VA loan, especially the 0% down. But if you are a veteran, you could only use the VA mortgage for the property that you're currently living in. It has to be a primary residence. And once you use it, you can use it multiple times, but it can't be used on 2 different properties simultaneous. All right. So there are many home financing programs developed for first-time home buyers. So I'm going to get into, here we go, boom. I know it's a little grainy, so I apologize. Unfortunately, this is the flyer that was sent to me from Broward County. So this is one program I'm very passionate about, and for 2 reasons. One, it really helps with the lower income buyers, as well as it's free money. I mean, you could literally get up to $40,000 to $50,000 of money from the government. So each city has their own bank, basically, of money. So once it's gone, it's gone. But currently, as you can see down here, these are all the cities that are currently available for this particular program. And I'm going to get a little bit more details of what the benefits are, what the small caveats are, and how you can qualify for this program. So number one, if you found a city with one of these participating, up to $40,000, that means for 3% down, as you could see here, a minimum of 3% down. So hypothetically speaking, you're buying a $200,000 property, you put 3% down, that's $6,000 out of your pocket. Well, I got closing costs. I have, additional down payments that's needed. So guess what? That $40,000 will allow you to purchase a property, say for $200,000, you put $6,000, the $40,000 will cover closing costs, as well as any additional fees that may come up that are needed. It could pay for an inspection, it can pay for your appraisal, as well as if you found a property for $220,000, but you're only qualified for $200,000, that $40,000, $20,000 of it could be put towards that $220,000. So you can actually have equity in the property additional to what you normally would, and still pay for closing costs. They just don't go over that $40,000. The caveats: you have to live in the property for a minimum of 15 years for it to be 100% forgiven. If you move out of that property at 14 years and you borrowed $30,000, when you sell that property, The equity that you received from it over the 14 years, you'll have to pay that $30,000 or $35,000 back, and then the rest of the proceeds goes to you. So yeah, that seems kind of crazy, but at the end of the day, it's money you didn't have that was given to you. You're just basically giving it back unless you obviously live in there for 15 years. You cannot rent, move out and use it as a rental property, an investment property, anything of that nature. It has to be your primary resident for that 15 years. The other caveat is your income, okay? So you as an individual cannot earn over $49,950. You can earn a little bit more if it's you and a child, you and a husband and wife, a partner, however you want. There's more people in the house. That's the income. But if there's two people in the house that are over 18, then both of their incomes is to qualify for that $57,000. So if one person makes 30, the other one makes 25, you still meet those requirements. Wilton Manors offers up to 140% of the area median income. So they have a significant higher threshold when it comes to income, but they have a much higher, purchase price. It's a little higher area for purchasing property. The maximum sales price is $331,000. For Wilton Manors, there is zero restrictions on purchase price. So obviously you could buy a $400,000 or $500,000 house as long as you can qualify for it. So if you all are interested, I'm going to send this. I think Alisha already has this flyer. If she doesn't, I'm going to send it to her again, and she can send it to you if she hasn't already. And if you have any additional questions about this, feel free to let me know, because this is an amazing program as long as you meet those particular criteria. All right. And all right, so we have that. All right, so when you decide to purchase your first home, make sure you work with an experienced mortgage professional. This is very important. Not only if you work with the preferred lender of your real estate agent, is the process going to go smoother, but also the fact that we check and make sure you're pre-qualified before purchasing a home. A lot of lenders, banks, brokers don't do the same process that we do. So what does that mean? You get a pre-qualification letter, you give it to Alisha. She believes they did their due diligence like we did. But then you start going through the process, and then they realize you can't afford that property, you had a lien, they didn't do their due diligence. So it's very important to have a trusted mortgage broker that's going to do their job to make sure you close on that property. The other side of things is banks. Yeah, everyone sees all these amazing rates out there that their bank is offering them. Banks have a little different process than lenders do. Banks don't have the same workforce behind them that we do, meaning they won't be able to close in 30 days. They could close in 45 days. They could take 60 days. And that's a fact. Even though they say they're going to close in 30 days, they're going to ask for extensions because they just don't have the workforce and power behind them to get the job done as efficiently as we can. So that's very important to really vet your lenders, your mortgage brokers, your banks, etc., before deciding who you're going to utilize. Rate, at the end of the day, isn't always the most important thing. Yes, it is going to determine and help you save money over the time frame, but an eighth of a point, a $5 or $10 difference in your mortgage payment, but is not as important as you closing on time and not having the opportunity of losing your money in escrow and not losing the home because the lender didn't do their due diligence. All right. How much, responsibly can I afford? If you're making $2,000 a month, or, you can't afford $2,000 a month in mortgage, and it's a lot of people come to me all the time and they're like, oh, I make X amount of dollars, but I can afford this. And I'm like, well, no, you can't, and that's why we have guidelines and pre-qualifications in place so someone doesn't drown themselves in debt from just purchasing their home. You get pre-qualified, reviewed a variety of loan programs. So that's where we come up and we give you the options. Oh, is FHA beneficial for you? Is VA beneficial for you? Are these DPA programs that Broward County offer going to work for you and be beneficial? Conventional, etc. So we lay that out for you beforehand. So once you get a contract, you know exactly the process and what you're getting yourselves into well beforehand of going through the loan process. Any additional costs, renovation, or upgrades in mind, always, like I said, have that $5,000 to $10,000 in the bank afterwards and have a general idea of how long you plan to stay in the new home. And then the one thing we wanted to touch in on is your closing cost. What does that include? You have your down payment requirement, which could be as low as 3.5% to as high as whatever you want. And then you have your closing costs in addition to your down payment. So you're looking at, for about a $300,000 property, you're looking about, at 5% down, roughly about 22 grand you're going to need to close. That means you have to show me that you have those assets either in the bank, in a retirement fund, or getting a gift letter, getting a gift from a relative in order to close that home, or else I'm not going to give you a pre-approval letter. If you can't solidify the amount needed to close on that property, you will not get a pre-approval letter. So it's very important. If you only have $5 grand in the bank, it's not time. If you have 15, yes, that's a little bit easier to work with, but that's very important to understand. It's not just the down payment, it's also closing costs that are going to be responsible, that you're going to be responsible for. All right, here's just a little simple app if you wanted to download. This will help you scouting homes. You could put in information in there to see what a possibility of the mortgage would cost, because you could pull up tax information. It's a great opportunity for you to see kind of as homes are available. Alisha has great programs in place for this as well through the MLS that she can set you up on to actually get updates when homes come onto the market, what they're in your price range and your locations that you're looking for. This also helps kind of with the same process that she does. All right, so that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, this is the time to ask. And thank you all very much. I truly appreciate it. So let the questions begin.
We have some questions that were in the chat as well.
Okay, let me see if I can get to those.
Hey, yes, Jared, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you for all of that. And that was very helpful. My first question, I actually have two questions. My first question is, for doing a credit background check for your pre-qualified, what type of your credit history impacts the most or pre-qualification?
So the history, your history is your history. So if you have derogatories on your credit, if you have charge-offs on your credit, if you have any liens or judgments that show up on your credit report, the liens and judgment will automatically exclude you from getting a loan until you get them removed. Derogatories, they just affect your score, and charge-offs also affect your score. Derogatories can be removed by, settling up on whatever that collection cost is, as well as the charge-offs. If you fight it enough through the 3 different bureaus, you could possibly get those removed. And so the difference between a collection and a charge-off, a collection is something that's currently out that you need to pay. A charge-off is basically them trying to get paid for an extended period of time, and they give up and they just call it a charge-off, and it's on your credit report from 7 to 10 years, unfortunately. So those will affect your score. The most important thing to remember is your balance of your credit card debt is going to, on how much you have left on it. So say you have $10,000 in balances available and you're $9,000 in credit card debt out of that 10, that's really going to bring your credit score down. The lower that ratio is, the better your credit score is going to be. So it's very important if you want to work on your credit, two things. You need to have open credit. You need to have credit cards open. You need to not close a credit card. So even if you're not using it and you have zero balance, do not close your credit card, especially prior to purchasing a home. Because you close that credit, what happens? Your balance ratio goes from 10,000 now to 6,000. And now your credit card debt is even higher. So it actually will affect your credit in a negative way if you close credit cards. When we pull your credit, we pull all three bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, and we use the median. We don't care which one it is. If you have 600, 650, and 660, we're going to use the 650, and that's how it works. Another thing in regards to credit that is a lot of people mistake is if you have a co-borrower that, oh, I'm going to put my wife on it because her credit's good, but I'm not using her income. No, that's not how it works. It's always going to take the lowest credit of the two borrowers. So if Alicia and I are going to buy a house and she has 700 and I have 660, they're going to use my 660, even though we're both on the loan, we're both on the title, etc. So that's very important.
Sticking to the credit, there's a question about what is the lowest credit score you have seen get approved for a loan?
600. And if you need help getting your credit up, we have Credit Tool, which is a free service to all of our potential borrowers that will give you the tools needed in order to get your credit score above the number we need it to be or we want it to be in order to get approved for a loan.
Okay, I have another question. Thank you for answering the first one, Jared. So we go through the process, right, between our realtor and our loaner, and we go through the credit process. We go through trying to get the loan, and we take the proper steps, right, in order. Now we're at the phase where now we need to pay out of our pocket for an inspector to inspect the home. And then we also need to pay out of our pocket for an appraisal for the worth of the home. And let's just say that goes downwards, right? And now we want to get out of the contract because the appraisal it didn't match our needs and our negotiated between us and the homeowner. And also when we did the inspection, the inspector said, bail out of this home is dangerous. I mean, it's not even worth it. There's too much damage and stuff like that. So after we paid out of our pocket for the inspector, and we paid out of our pocket for the appraisal, and we bail out because of serious conditions, and now we have to start from scratch with another property, another home, we got to pay out of our pocket again. That's, so we lose out on that process out of our pocket. That's
Correct.
like taking the chance. That's gambling.
Yeah, I'll take this one, Jared. So you wouldn't lose out on both of those things, right? If you are doing the inspection, that would come typically about 2 weeks before you would even get to the appraisal. So you pay for the inspection, you find out that there are issues with the house and it's not worth it. So then you get to back out. Yes, you will lose the inspection money. But what I like to tell clients is I'd much rather you pay $400 for an inspection, find out the issues about the house, back out while you can, as opposed to pay $400,000 for the house, then later find out about these issues and there's no way out, right? So that is a risk you're taking. These are out-of-pocket expenses that you will incur in the beginning. And then if you start over, yes, again, you would have to go and pay another $400 or $350 or whatever the inspection fee is going to be for the next house. But again, you won't lose the deposit money. So if you put $10,000 into escrow, you won't lose that money. So I'd much rather you lose the inspection costs before you lose out on buying an entire house. So generally think about $500 for the inspection, right? is something that you could lose out on. But again, you lose out on that as opposed to losing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yes, no one's going to reimburse you for that, unfortunately.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and I have another question. I saw that the locations were all like in Fort Lauderdale and stuff. If we were looking to have you guys, you know, help us and be a part of, you know, this whole program and everything to get a home, what are not your network areas that you do not cover?
I cover the whole state of Florida. I'm licensed in the state of Florida. So, I mean, I'm currently doing loans and I mean, in the central state of Florida, Miami with the one I'm doing with Alisha, Broward, Palm Beach. So, you know, obviously this general area, I have a little bit easier reach because of marketing, and I can, you know, physically meet the realtors or speak to them a little bit easier, but I can do loans anywhere in the state of Florida.
Like, cause we're in Tampa, we're in the Tampa area,
And
not that we're looking for in the Tampa area. We might want to move a little bit, you know, out of the area, like, what is that? You know, just somewhere maybe out of the Tampa area, but like in between Fort Lauderdale and Tampa. So, Alisha, would you say the same thing about the locations?
I could also service all throughout the state of Florida as well. And like Jared said, you know, it doesn't have to be here in Fort Lauderdale for you to use Fairway. Fairway has offices everywhere, but even more so, you could use the people that are here in Fort Lauderdale for your Tampa purchase or an Orlando purchase, etc.
Right.
Jared, I had a question that was sent to me via text. What down payment do you have to put down? How much of a down payment do you have to put down?
So FHA requires 3.5%. Conventional requires 5%. So that's the minimum. Obviously, you could put as much as you want down, therefore afterwards. 20% is the minimum requirement to not have to pay mortgage insurance. Obviously, the higher your down payment is on a property, the lower your mortgage. If it's not 20%, the lower your mortgage insurance payment will be, as well as the percentage. And Jerry, just so you're aware too, keep in mind is there's grant programs throughout Broward County. I mean, throughout the state of Florida. And if you are looking to take part of that or have an area that you're interested in, I can do my due diligence and look up to see if there are any programs available and have all that information. And our branch will actually get approved for that. So that way, if you do move forward, it's an easier process.
Good to
Thank
know.
you very much for that, Jared. Looking forward to.
I just got another text. I guess people have decided to text me as opposed to write it in the chat. But the question is, are all of the first-time home buyers programs income-based? So if you make a little bit more money, but you are a first-time home buyer, are there programs for you?
All of them are income-based, but those incomes vary depending on the county and the city. So like I showed you with Welton Manors, they have a 140% area median income. Hollandale Beach has their own program in place that's 120% area median income. So Hollandale Beach is probably the best program in Broward County. If you want to live there, they have up to $80,000 and only $3,000 down. So not everybody wants to live in Hollandale Beach, but out of the programs in Broward County, they have their own separate one, and they're by far the best. I mean, 80 grand and only $3,000 down.
What are the interest rates you are currently seeing for someone with great credit and great debt to income ratios? And where do you see interest rates going in the future?
So prior to January 28th, the interest rates were sub threes to high twos, meaning 2.875 to 3.125. I think Michael is a perfect example of that. He had like a 700 credit score, and we got him at 3.125, I think, of his interest rate. Recently, I've been locking in interest rates roughly around 3.5 to 3.625. I see within the next 4 to 6 months that them being slightly under 4 to 4%. So the reason for that is the economy is getting better. We're getting back to work. You know, the government is investing in us again by stimulus checks. And, you know, places are starting to open up, you know, events are happening, etc. So the only reason our interest rates were sub threes for the first time in history, literally history, is because we were in a pandemic. And that's the only reason. If we were never in a pandemic and that would have never happened, the interest rates would have never gone below, you know, threes like they have been. So yes, that's why the market is bananas right now, because if you think about it, if your interest rate is 4%, you're trying to buy a $300,000 property, and it's say $2,200 a month for that, at 2.875, you can afford now a $350,000 property. So your buying power increases significantly just by the interest rate that you currently have. Don't let that scare you. I mean, that's why, you know, like Alisha said, houses are literally on the market for 2 to 3 days. Single family homes especially, and the 350 to 450 range are on the market for 1 day, 2 days max. My parents live in Margate, sold their house, put it on the market 1 day, got $20,000 over asking price on the first day, 6 offers in 1 day. And that's no joke. That's constant. That's consistent through the board. So as interest rates start to grow up a little bit, the market will start to level out and homes will be on the market again for longer than 2 days. But once again, people are flocking in from New York, California, Chicago, the Northeast, etc. So we are not just competing with residents of Florida, we are competing with the whole country. The whole country is coming to Florida. So, you know, not to scare anybody, but, you know, just we're here to be realistic.
We are definitely 20 minutes over the time we said we would end this, but if you guys have any other questions, Jared and I are happy to stay on. I think we answered all the questions that were in the chat or texted to me. Any final questions? Final thoughts? I would say one of the benefits, even if you are going to be in a place like Orlando or Tampa, sure, you might have a Fairway office in those areas, but I would still try to just use someone that I can trust. I could, you know, I'm familiar with, and that's going to walk me through the process. I think that that's the hardest thing. We gave you guys a lot of information today, like obviously, especially if you've never heard some of these words before, escrow, you know, mortgage rate insurance and all this stuff. It's a lot of information, but it's going to be very important to first-time home buyers to have someone kind of holding your hand through this process that can answer questions every step of the way. And obviously, I have relationships with all of you on here, so I know that you guys are comfortable in that sense. But I wouldn't tell you that Fairway is a great mortgage company if it, you know, if it weren't. So keep that in mind. Moving forward, text me, call me, let me know if you guys have any questions further.
Awesome. Thank you all very much. Truly appreciate it. Have a good one, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for everything, Alisha, Jared, and have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Night.